Okay. Okay, everyone. So this is kind of going the way we expected it to. What I mean by that is that we had all these great pronouncements out of Geneva and all sorts of things that were agreed to. And then, sure enough, in today's headlines, all we have is Iran denying everything. To get us started on this video, let's take a look at Vice President J.D. Vance's 3 minutes here talking to the media about what's going on with the Iran negotiations.
But look, the fundamental thing we got is, number one, we set up the mechanism to ensure not only the Straits of Hormuz are open, but will stay open. We think about 15 million barrels of oil come out. That's one of the reasons why oil is so low right now. Obviously, that means lower gas prices, and gas prices are going to keep coming down. Number two, we actually set up the right mechanism to ensure the regional ceasefire to manage the inevitable conflicts that will come up. We feel great about that. We're working with our allies, from the Israelis to the Gulf Arabs, to make sure that sticks. And we feel very, very good about where that is.
Okay, hold on. So far, what he said is that we came to an agreement, the straits are open and they're going to remain open. But the Iranians are saying, and the MOU says, that the Iranians have control of the Straits of Hormuz. Okay, and that they'll be able to charge tolls after 60 days. Trump says no. Interesting. And then he talks about how we have this, this mechanism that would talk to the Israelis, and we're moving forward on that. That is, what was it? Let's listen to that again.
To ensure the regional down. Number two, we actually set up the right mechanism to ensure the regional ceasefire to manage the inevitable conflicts that will come up. We feel great.
Right. And there what he's talking about is that they set up this mechanism to have the Israelis and Hezbollah and Iran and everyone talk to each other. And again, I made a video about this yesterday, but come on. This agreement, they literally did the unthinkable and officially made Iran part of any conversations about what's going on in Lebanon. The entire effort for years now to extract Iranian influence from Lebanon, to extract Hezbollah and the Iranian control of Lebanon, to give Lebanon back its sovereignty. They've actually doubled down and said the Iranians are part of the conversations about Lebanon. That's what that one was about.
Great about that. We're working with our allies, from the Israelis to the Gulf Arabs, to make sure that sticks, and we feel very, very good about where that is. We have the Iranians allowing weapons inspectors, nuclear inspectors into their country for the first time in a long time. We're obviously going to bolster that inspection regime to make sure they can never have a nuclear weapon.
All right. We're going to get into this one big time. The Iranians agreeing to nuclear inspectors. Hold on to that thought.
And finally, we continue to make progress on these technical negotiations. We left a lot of our team, the Iranians left a lot of their team at the resort there to keep on working at it. So all in all, a very productive 36 hours. We're going to have to keep working it. The last point that I'll make is, as I told you all this morning, this is laying a foundation for what could be a truly transformed Middle East. But we haven't built the house yet. We're going to have to keep on building, and that's what we'll do.
Just in terms of the negotiations, you've said before that you've been cautious on these negotiations, that you believe that people are not always acting in good faith. Have things changed over the past 36 hours during your meeting with Iran and the other mediaries?
No, all I mean is, look, whether good faith or bad faith, you can't trust anybody's words. You have to trust what they actually do. Letting in the inspectors is a big deal, but again, we're going to see what they actually let the inspectors do once they're in the country. That's going to continually be a part of our negotiation. So my point is not that I trust or distrust anybody. My point is that I trust actions. And what the president has asked us to do is verify what they're doing, focus less on what they're saying.
Sir, you mentioned competition for the Iranians using these frozen funds.
Sure.
To buy American soy, for example. Is that something that was raised yesterday that they've already agreed to? The Iranians have already agreed to that?
Yeah, that was something.
Okay, so the question here was that about what he had said the day before, that the unfrozen assets, whatever unfrozen assets would be released to Iran, the way that they would ensure that they don't get spent on weapons and other nefarious activities is that there will be a mechanism in place to ensure that the money is used to purchase food, corn and soy and other things from America, from American farmers. Okay, so she's asking about that.
It came up yesterday, and we actually asked the Qataris to help us set up the mechanism so that we can ensure that the money goes where we want it to go, and they agreed to do that. We have a good relationship, obviously, with them and a good operational oversight mechanism in place. But even with that said, even with the caveat that's going to benefit American farmers and obviously benefit the people of Iran, we want both. But fundamentally, that money is not going to be unfrozen unless we continue to see progress. So that'll obviously be a big part of the negotiation in the days to come.
Sir, very quickly, there was a moment yesterday when Arachi came into the room and did not greet you. You guys did not shake hands, and then he walked out of the room. Did you feel snubbed by that? Did you feel it was an intentional move on their part? How did you interpret what happened?
No, I mean, I trust me, I've spent a lot of time dealing with the Iranians over the last few months. Sometimes I find them extremely confusing as negotiators. But look, we had a little press conference. They obviously don't quite have the same First Amendment protections in Iran that we have in the United States of America. We talked to you guys and then had a series of really good meetings. What I did find kind of funny is that after that initial meeting, there was this, sort of social media firestorm where everybody said the Iranians are going to leave. And then we proceeded to talk to them for like the next 9 hours. So I would just encourage the media, mistrust a little bit what you see coming out of Iranian social media. They can be confusing negotiators, but we feel like we're making progress. Thank you, guys.
All right. He's just being humiliated and doesn't even realize it. We'll get into all the issues that he raises here. Let's just watch the first couple seconds of Marco Rubio earlier today.
On Iran, sir.
Okay.
Yesterday, the Iranians said that they had not agreed to inspections from IAEA, contradicting what Vice President.
Okay, the question here is that the Iranians said that they have actually not agreed to allow International Atomic Energy Association inspectors in, after J.D. Vance just said, and said yesterday as well, that the Iranians did agree to have the atomic energy inspectors come in. So he's being asked about that.
What is your understanding of what
Well, we know what they agreed to. I don't know why they have to say the things they say. Whatever their internal or domestic politics is, I guess they'll navigate it. But we know what they agreed to do, and now they'll either do it or they won't. And if they do, the process moves forward, and if they don't, the president will have some decisions to make.
Okay. So let's get into what was agreed to, what was not agreed to. This is just a headline. I'm not going to read this article, just reading the headline because it says it all about this. This could have been the title for this video. Trump keeps claiming Iran made concessions. Iran keeps denying them. Let's get into them. So here's from Iranian state media from today. Baghai, he's the foreign ministry spokesman. Iran has no plans for IAEA inspections of damaged facilities. Iranian foreign ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai stated during his weekly press conference on Tuesday, that's today, that Tehran had no plans to allow the International Atomic Energy Agency to inspect nuclear facilities damaged by the U.S. and Israeli military aggression. Baghai clarified that no protocols existed for such visits and explicitly denied that the Iranian delegation had met with the IAEA director. The spokesman maintained that Iran, as a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty and a nation committed to safeguards agreements, would continue its routine procedures. Okay. He expressed appreciation for the countries that chose not to align. Yeah, there you go. He's just saying we never agreed to that. We never agreed to that. And it talks about how Israel's violating the ceasefire in Lebanon. Okay. Now here, so that's on the inspectors. So the Iranians deny that they ever agreed to allow inspectors in. Now, Marco Rubio he's saying, hey, look, we know what they agreed to. I don't know why they're saying this for public consumption. He's assuming that what they say in private is what they actually meant. You saw J.D. Vance there saying, we kind of find they're negotiating with them can sometimes be confusing. And they threatened to leave, and then we negotiated with them. Take a look at this. Vance, unfreezing Iranian assets to enrich U.S. farmers. So we talked about this. Vice President J.D. Vance said that if Iranian assets are unfrozen, the money will go to buy U.S. corn, wheat, and soybeans, calling it a classic Trump deal. President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, came up with the idea of tying the release of assets to buying U.S. farm goods, said Vance. The U.S. and Qatar would have to agree to unfreeze assets, Vance said. If Iranian assets are ever unfrozen, they're going to make American farmers richer and feed the Iranian people, like we saw him say in that clip. And he also said that the unfreezing of assets is going to be tied to them changing their behavior. Although, according to the MOU, the unfreezing of assets is one of the things that's supposed to happen immediately upon signing the MOU, and the Iranians consider it a precondition for any further negotiations. So this will be interesting. Although we're out getting reports already today that about $15 billion of Iranian assets held in some in the UAE and some in Qatar are already being released to the Iranians. And then how do the Iranians respond to this claim by Vance that this is what the money is going to be used for? Look what they say. No monopoly on purchasing American goods exists in any agreement. Ghorbanzadeh, a member of the Iranian negotiating delegation, strangely they don't give his first name, emphasized that no monopoly on purchasing American goods basically exists either in the text of the memorandum, in the negotiations, or in any draft text. He stated that the Vice President of the United States or any other person might raise any issue for domestic consumption, but what is important is what is written and signed in the agreement that has been reached. This member of the Iranian negotiating delegation added that this claim is more of an admission that the possibility of purchasing agricultural products exists not only from other countries, but also from the United States, but the choice belongs to the buyer, namely the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, let's get on to the ballistic missile issue. This one's really interesting. Look at this. This one is fascinating what happened here. Shahbaz Sharif, who's the Pakistani prime minister, said earlier today that ballistic missiles are among the topics of negotiation between Iran and the U.S. Take a look. Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif announced in the country's National Assembly on Tuesday, today, that technical negotiations between Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States are scheduled to take place within the next 60 days. According to him, these talks will address issues including Iran's nuclear program, ballistic missiles, sanctions relief, and Iran's frozen assets. Because we're entirely hopeful, inshallah, that by the grace of Almighty Allah, the memorandum of understanding will be transformed into a sustainable long-term agreement. And look what did the Iranians say? So the Iranians said Iran does not negotiate on its missile capabilities. But before we get into their denials of this, because it gets really interesting, check this out. Well, let's do this in this order. Let's first see their denial. Iran does not negotiate on its missile capabilities. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai stated during his weekly press conference on Tuesday that Iran had no plans to allow the International Atomic Energy Agency to inspect nuclear facilities damaged by the U.S. And this, notice that the text of this talks about the nuclear facilities, but the headline talks about missiles. Well, let's go further. So there's another story, also from today, from an hour after the first one. Iran rejects claims of missile talks with the U.S. A source close to Iran's negotiating team has dismissed Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif's claim that the ballistic missiles would be included in the next round of talks. So you have Shahbaz Sharif telling the parliament that they are included. Then you have the Iranians denying that they're included and mentioning him in the story, saying that he's wrong. Okay, the source stressed that the missile-related issues are fundamentally not on the agenda of the negotiations. Okay. Adding that the published memorandum of understanding indicates that no such topics are included, and that's true. The MOU does not mention the ballistic missiles at all. Rejecting reports suggesting Iran may enter talks over its missile capabilities, the source said the missile issue is not on the negotiating agenda in any way, and it's unclear with what objective such claims are being raised. This allegation is categorically denied. Okay. All right. So are you following? Because it's going to get more interesting. Pakistani Prime Minister says in the parliament today that the ballistic missiles are going to be negotiated. Iran then denies that that's true. And in the article, I'm pointing this out for a reason, it mentions that they dismissed Shahbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan's claims that they are included. Now, one more story before I show you something really interesting. Pesach in Islamabad. This is also from today, from a couple hours after the previous story. No talks on ballistic missiles. Okay, So here's Masoud Pezeshkian, the president of Iran, was in Pakistan today. And during a meeting with Shehbaz Sharif, the prime minister, he said the ballistic missile program has never been and will never be part of any negotiations. Okay, so, and it talks about how he's leading a high-level delegation. No negotiations have taken place, and none will take place regarding ballistic missiles. We do not trust the United States because we were attacked twice while engaged in negotiations. Nevertheless, we have always been and remain ready for dialogue and peace. The president also stressed that Iran remains committed to its obligations. Very nice. Now look at this paragraph. For his part, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif welcomed the Iranian delegation's visit to Islamabad and described the recent Pakistan mediated agreement as an important opportunity for peace. He also stressed that the signed memorandum of understanding contains no reference to Iran's ballistic missiles and that no discussions of the issue were ever intended. So he's walking back his claim that they were intended. Now let me show you this. I decided to search. I wanted to see where is the reporting other than this one story I saw here from Iran Wire, which is this is an opposition in exile Iran news outlet saying that the ballistic missiles were among the negotiating topics. But it wasn't just them saying it. We saw in the first story from Iran that it says that he dismissed, here, this story, he dismissed the Pakistani prime minister's claim. And then, so I went to Google and I searched Sharif ballistic missiles under news to see what would come up. So we have the Iran Wire story that I shared with you. And then we have Anadolu. Anadolu is Turkish state media. And look at the headline here. U.S. Iran to discuss ballistic missile program, nuclear issue in the next 60 days. Pakistani premier. Now look what happens when we click this. Content not found. Okay, let's find another one. See, look, it was never on the table. Sharif said the missile program was never part of the U.S.-Iran deal. Okay, Pakistan, right? This is what they're saying. This is what he's saying now. He's now claiming that it never existed. Okay, let's check this for the last 20 hours. No talks on ballistic missiles. Iran's president hails Pakistan ties, rules out missiles. Pezeshkian. Okay, so here we have the story. There was another story I found. Where is it? Here it is. U.S. Iran to discuss ballistic missiles, nuclear issue in the next 60 days, Pakistan PM says 6 hours ago. And now let's check. Page not found. Okay, and this is from a Turkish news outlet, another Turkish news outlet. What does this mean? We're seeing that there were headlines that are still in the Google search under news that say that Pezeshkian made this claim, said that the U.S. and Iran will be discussing the ballistic missiles. He said it to the parliament, and it was reported in Turkish media. And now those news items are gone. They've been scrubbed from the internet. And all we have is the denials, except this one opposition, this Iran Wire opposition outlet. So they're it's what's called memory holding something, where they make it that now, like, wait a day or two and you won't even find these headlines. They're just going to go away because the stories attached to them are gone already. It just takes Google a little bit of time to catch up. Not only did Sharif walk it back, as we see here, that he then said it was never part of it. For his part, Sharif welcomed the Iranian negotiations. He also stressed that the signed memorandum of understanding contains no reference to the ballistic missiles and that no discussions on the issue were ever intended. It's being scrubbed. What's the truth? And now we have this story from The Hill, from yesterday, sorry. Most Americans skeptical of Trump's Iran deal. Poll. A new poll shows that most Americans are skeptical of President Trump's memorandum of understanding toward a final deal. The latest CBS YouGov poll, released Sunday, found growing uncertainty about the deal's future, with 57% of Americans saying the conflict with Iran caused more problems than it solved, 21% saying the conflict solved problems, another 21% saying it didn't solve anything. Most Americans also view the deal as being reached so that the Trump administration can end the conflict. Most Americans say the U.S. has not fulfilled the administration's primary objective of permanently stopping Iran's nuclear program. Respondent skepticism also carries into whether the U.S. has stopped Iran from threatening other countries, made the Islamic regime's people safe and free, and changed its leaders to be more pro-U.S. What this tells us is that the American people are not fooled by this. When Trump stands up there and says there's been regime change and they're never going to have a nuclear weapon, and that's what we've achieved now, and Trump said that we've now achieved this, and you look at what the Iranians themselves are saying, and you just realize what I've been saying since this memorandum of understanding came out. It was built to fail. It's never going to get past first base. And now the Pakistanis, we know that the Pakistanis and the Qataris have been helping them. So now the Americans are saying, J.D. Vance is saying that together with Jared Kushner, they worked out with the Qataris that they're going to control the money that gets released to them. Are you serious? The Qataris are supposed to be the oversight here for the money that's going to the Iranians to make sure that they spend it on food and not on weapons. This is where things stand, folks. Iran's denying all the progress that J.D. Vance says that we made. They're going to allow nuclear inspectors. No, they're not. Money that's released is only going to be released conditionally based on their behavior. Iran says no, it has to be released now. Any money that's released is going to be spent on American farmers, on food from America. The Iranians say we don't know what you're talking about. Right? This is where we are. Not going to allow inspectors in. So I don't want to say the Americans are being played, because like what Marco Rubio said was right. Look, if they don't comply, Trump will go back to bombing. But what it means is that this whole negotiation, besides being a humiliation for J.D. Vance or for the American administration, is just it's giving more time to the regime. And as we've known since the beginning, their whole goal is always to buy more time. And that's how they buy their survival. So they're buying more and more time. It's pretty clear. And it's going to make it harder to deal with them later on. They're now selling their oil because the Trump administration has now allowed them to sell their oil. And Trump is once again saying that, they need it to help feed their people. It's a humanitarian crisis. Of course it is. That's the way these things work. When we defeated Nazi Germany, there was a humanitarian crisis. A lot of civilians had their lives, lost their lives, and it was a big humanitarian crisis in Dresden and in Germany. There was a big humanitarian crisis in Tokyo. When America firebombed them and when they dropped nuclear weapons, that ended the war and saved lots of lives. But lots of lives were lost. That's the way it goes. And you either have the conviction to drive to victory or you don't. And throwing a lifeline to the regime out of humanitarian concern for the people of Iran who are being oppressed by the regime and allowing them to remain in charge, this is all folly. And the whole Lebanon thing, saying that, we're going to work out some deconfliction mechanism. This whole thing it's so misguided. And maybe I'm beating a dead horse. Maybe I'm saying things that I've already said in previous videos. But in this one, just to sum up, I just wanted to show you the statements the Iranians are making on every single issue the Americans are claiming they made progress on. The Iranians are saying, nope. And then this bizarre situation where the Pakistani prime minister says in public that they're going to be negotiating on the ballistic missiles. The Iranians deny it, and he then walks it back and says he never said it. And we see that it gets removed from friendly news outlets, friendly meaning friendly to the Iranians, the Turkish news outlets that had covered it. So that's where things stand, everybody. Fasten your seatbelts. This story is far from over.